Happy Pride, everyone. We'll go ahead and get our event started, and welcome for everyone joining us today. I'm Paul Anira. I'm the Program Director of LGBTQ plus Equity and Education here at Johns Hopkins Medicine. And on behalf of Dr. Sharita Golden and the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Health Equity, I want to welcome everybody here to this event for us to be able to honor our 2022 LGBTQ plus Pride Month Achiever Award winners. Dr. Golden would like to have been here, but unfortunately something came up earlier today and she wasn't able to be able to join us today. But thank you for being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel Mosley to introduce our achievers.
So I'm Rachel Mosley. I'm wound ostomy nurse specialist here at Bayview, and I'm also chair of the LGBTQ plus employee resource group at Bayview. And if you ever want to join us, we do monthly meetings via Zoom. So anybody can join. You don't have to be a Bayview person. We have some folks from other entities as well. So please just shoot me an email if you'd like to join us.
There we go.
Okay. So the Achievers Award program was started by the JHM Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Health Equity. And it really wants to recognize and highlight underrepresented minorities across the health. Individuals are recognized for their outstanding contributions to the field and or surrounding the unrepresented minorities. The awards are aligned with the Heritage Month. We have Women's History Month, Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, of course, LGBTQ plus, Hispanic Heritage Month, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and Veteran as well. And this award began in 2020. So I'm very, very pleased to introduce this year's winners. All right, very pleased to introduce Dr. Amelia Poussin. She is the co-director of the Emergency Medicine Clerkship, also as assistant professor. She, in the role is the Emergency Medicine Clerkship, and in that role, she's been involved with educating interns on how to care for people in the LGBTQ plus community. She covers topics such as preferred pronouns, patient stages of transition, and sexual histories. She educates residents and staff members about health inequities that are specific to the LGBTQ plus community and ways to rectify these disparities. Dr. Poussin also stresses the importance of developing a rapport and trusting relationship with such patients, as many have had experiences that have injured their trust with the medical system at large. In bringing in gender and sexual orientation affirming care to the emergency medicine intern reviewed session on queer health and healthcare. In addition to her professional activities, Dr. Poussin has made numerous philanthropic and volunteer contributions to local and regional LGBTQ plus focused organizations, including Baltimore Safe Haven, Free State Justice, and Chase Brexton. Not pictured here today, but another winner, she was not unable to join us today, is Kendra Bray, and she is a specialty care technician at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in Florida. She is a strong advocate for LGBTQ plus children and works to help the care team understand their needs. She understands what support is needed for children as they come to understand their feelings and express this to their parents and or guardians. She's very concerned with youth suicide in that population due to its family members not feeling accepted or understood. She is a longtime volunteer at a local organization that supports suicidal LGBTQ plus teens. She's also active in her church, which supports her and her community, LGBTQ plus community. As a proud member of the LGBTQ plus community, she feels strongly that every child should feel safe discussing their feelings with adults who care. Outside of that work, she is involved in youth suicide prevention. Is Keshav Kenajal. And Dr. Kenajal is one of 12 hospitalists from around the country chosen by the Society of Hospital Medicine for their DEI task force. He's passionate about education related to caring for LGBTQ plus patients and is an advocate, both within his division and nationally. Ground talks to his division on the topic of LGBTQ plus health and spoken nationally to educate providers about the special needs. The division's LGBTQ plus affinity group, which is made up of LGBTQ plus individuals within the division and ensures the special needs of this population are met. In 2021, Dr. Kenajal was one of 12 hospitalists from around the country selected by the president of the Society of Hospital Medicine and tasked with the development of a diversity, equity, and Dr. Kenajal sits on the DEI Special Interest Group as an executive council of hospital medicine. Based on the dedication he has shown to DEI efforts, effective July 1st, Dr. Kenajal will assume the role of co-director of DEI within the division. Salmu Sal, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Salmu is the co-founder and lead on the Violet Project, a Johns Hopkins Medicine School OBGYN department initiative that aims to provide Baltimore teenagers with comprehensive sexual health education and free reproductive health services. In just a year, she led a large team of researchers and undergraduate students to provide sexually transmitted infection testing kits, sexual reproductive health education through online and in-person events, free menstrual cycle and sexual health products to Baltimore youth. Salmu works to ensure sexual education catered towards members of the LGBTQ plus community is included in their created and discovered a digital platform and a free online STI store for youth, with LGBTQ plus youth being a plethora of curriculum and activities, and has led classroom discussions in Baltimore City high schools on gender identity, sexual orientation, and gender expression. So these are our winners, and we're super excited to have the Reverend Dr. Paula Teague, who is going to have a chat with our winners, and we'll get to know them a little bit better. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Paula Nira, and thanks to the whole diversity, inclusion, and equity group for these awards. And let's give our three winners a big hand. We can do it like this. We can go on Zoom. We can, or off mute, or we could do our reactions. But anyway, so glad to have you with us, and congratulations. I'm gonna ask some questions, but if you in the chat, if you have a question you want me to ask, you can put it in the chat, and I'll try to, with Rachel and Paula's help, we'll make sure we're coming back to the chat too. So, but I thought I would get started with just some fun things to help us get to know you, and then we'll get maybe down to some brass tacks about like what motivates you, as more serious things. But if you're willing, these are for all three of you, and you can just unmute yourselves and jump in with this. So, and I have to give credit to Stephen Colbert and Brene Brown, a weird combo probably, but they do this really cool thing where they ask, 8 or 10 questions each. And so I borrowed a few from them and made up a couple of my own. So here we go. So do you like flat or sparkling water? Unmute. Just jump in.
If I'm on vacation, I tend to go for sparkling water for something different.
Amelia's holding up her flat, I think, probably. Or sparkling.
No, it's too. So it's got bubbles in it for sure. Okay. Absolutely. It's my constant companion. It's the best.
Okay. Samu, is that right?
Samya. Yeah.
Samya.
Also sparkling. Also a sparkling fan.
All right. So we got 3 sparklings. All right. Apples or oranges?
Apples.
Both. Okay. No choosing. Okay.
I'll go oranges.
Oranges. How about you, Amelia?
Very context specific. So in the wintertime, like the itty bitty oranges that peel really easy, those are bomb. But I take my daughter apple picking every year, and we eat till we are literally spherical. So I think for me, it's context specific.
Okay, cool. What's your favorite smell?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you know what? I really do love passion fruit. It makes me happy.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna go with coffee brewing.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not a coffee drinker, and I love coffee brewing. Amelia, how about you?
This is an extremely stereotypical answer, but I love fancy candles. So like it doesn't even have to be like a specific scent, but you all have a sense of like fancy candle smell, like fancy candle smell. Yeah, those are great.
Soccer or lacrosse?
Soccer all the way.
Soccer.
Yeah, soccer
Soccer.
for me.
Okay.
I contend that the question is incorrectly formed and I vote for women's rugby.
Okay. So noted. Thank you. All right, one last one. Shower or long tub soak?
Shower.
Yeah, I do enjoy my warm showers.
Okay.
So long as I can convince my Baltimore row house to kick out the water pressure, I'm also a shower fan. But there's nothing wrong with dropping ridiculousness, ideally with glitter, into the tub and changing the color.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So, well, this is a little more serious, but here we go. This is a question Brene Brown asks. When you're afraid and you decide to be brave, what's the first thing you do? When you're afraid and decide to be brave, what's the first thing you do?
I work in the emergency department, so I get a lot of moments where I both have to coach trainees to be brave and be brave myself. And I have found that breathing, this is a Brene Brown thing, breathing into my body. So finding myself in my physical place and self and noting what I can see and hear and smell and feel around me is a great way of grounding myself in preparation for manifesting the resources that are necessary to be brave in any given moment.
Thank you.
I think for me, I have to just take a step back and be like, what's the worst that's going to happen? And once I do that and I realize that fear head on, then I usually am able to proceed and just know that bad things can happen, but hopefully they don't.
Okay, cool.
I'll usually talk to multiple friends or my brother and until I'm more secure in the decision.
Cool. Thank you. So tell me, this is more related, I think, to your projects that you did, but who's your hero? Who inspired you around doing this work that you're doing?
I would say that my hero as a clinician is Dr. Paul Farmer, may he rest in power, who passed away this year, working in rural Rwanda. He is a giant of global health and a giant of putting our most vulnerable members of society in the presence of the highest quality care that can be provided to them. And I think about him and his legacy each and every day.
So Dr. Farmer, thank you.
Sorry. You can go. Okay. I read a book in undergrad that was like kind of transformative and really inspired my passion, particularly for global sexual and reproductive health. And it was called Infidel by Ayaan Hirsi Ali. And I think growing up with my parents being extremely religious as well, just learning about how religion and sexuality and gender and health all are so intertwined, and it can be a really strong struggle for some folks, but also a lot of people can find a lot of like affirmation in it. So I would say that she's inspired a lot of my work in like both global reproductive health, but also in like affirming people, like the youth that I work with here in Baltimore.
Thank you. How about you, Keisha?
I have to go a bit closer to home for my parents. I think they were both immigrants, and my mom was a refugee and coming to this country, and seeing what they did, starting off with very little and kind of working their way up, kind of carving an identity for themselves in an unfamiliar place, kind of rang true for me in carving my identity when coming out. And their journey in terms of supporting others around them makes me think of equality for all as well. And so their journey is definitely something I look up to when the going gets tough.
Thank you. So in the project that you all did, and they were all just amazing when we read about them, what are you most proud of that as a result of what you did in your work?
I think for
Oh, sorry. No, you go,
Great,
Christian.
please go. Well, I think in terms of for our hospitalists, we were able to do a survey of hospitalists nationally and see what topics in LGBTQ health needed more education. And we were able to form some modules that are free through the Society of Hospital Medicine to educate people about LGBTQ health for inpatients, and kind of seeing that work come out from just grow up from being like just an idea that 5 people had to a survey to now an educational modules on a platform has been rewarding to see.
Terrific.
I work with youth we conducted the first year of a youth training program this year where they learned about various topics in sexual and reproductive health and how to be peer educators. And last weekend had another like training session with undergraduate volunteers who are going to start being clinic volunteers with our department. And there were a few of the high school students who had completed the program who were at that session as well. And I just got to hear all of them like discuss with these like kids who are a lot older than them on like topics that at the beginning of the year they didn't know necessarily how to address, and just hearing them like be so confident and so well spoken and like really passionate about the like side of the argument they were debating for, and like really have so much education and be so confident in sharing their opinions on sexual and reproductive health was really great to see. And every time I get to hear like one of my like teenagers like explaining, for example, I watched one of them explain the menstrual cycle to like one of their like peers who was a guy in like 9th grade, and it was just amazing to like hear them be so eloquent and be able to like really share this education and like move it forward now.
Really terrific, isn't it? It's like you can see the ripple effect of your work as it goes out. That's really neat. Yeah. How about you, Amelia?
I think that my experience is perhaps common to many other people who work in education, which is that often the moment that it hits us, the work that we do as educators and the work that we do to change the kind of clinical care that will be provided by the people who we are tasked with teaching, doesn't hit us until sometime afterwards. I got a call in the middle of the night on our transfer line from somebody who I helped train a couple of years ago. And the patient that was being transferred was somebody who is a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And at the end of the transfer call, the person who's now somebody who works in the world and is a fabulous physician mentioned that they remembered things that we had talked about some years before. And that was a moment within the past year that it really hit me, the way in which doing this work, sometimes we plant the seed, but we don't see the flower all the time. And that the flower may bloom at a time that we never expected, but it's still so lovely to see. So that was just a little micro moment that happened for me this year that really gave me that feeling.
That sounds really cool. And think about the patients that patient that they were working with too, and the impact on that person that they had that knowledge. That's so cool. Yeah, thank you. So I know that you guys must have encountered obstacles in what you're doing. I mean, nothing worthwhile doesn't have a few bumps in the road, right? So what were the obstacle, or maybe one obstacle that you encountered, and how did you work around it? Amelia, you want to go first? You've been doing the last one.
I just, I think that the pace of change is a little stunning to me when I think about it's graduation time of year for many people, but particularly for residents in training. When I was applying to residency, I was told in no uncertain terms by all of the reputable mentors at the institution that I graduated from, that I should not be out, that it would be profoundly detrimental to my career, and that I should be very cautious. And now it's some years later, we're going to leave out exactly how many, but not that many. And I'm so appreciative to be honored by my employer for a facet of my identity that not very many years ago I was told would mean certain professional demise to even mention. And it's striking to me the pace of change. It's also striking to me lessons learned from advocating for women's health, that the ground is only as secure under your feet as you make it, and that we are collectively only as secure as our most vulnerable members, and that there's lots more to do.
Thank you. Great story.
I think for me, one of the things I've like always kind of struggled with was I tend to have more effeminate mannerisms. It's just my gender expression and whatnot, which is okay. But it took me a long time to come to terms with it, and even like realizing that I was like kind of holding myself back because of what I perceived other people would think of me. And even then, like with patients that sometimes come up where I may have a derogatory comment made because of it, but I think I've been lucky to kind of build a support network to whenever a bad thing does happen, I can go back to them and kind of talk about it and realize that sometimes when we're caring for people on our service, they come from a place where that they're hurting as well, and they lash out at others, and kind of reframing it in that situation.
Sorry that that's happened to you. And it sounds like there's such a graceful response that you figured out to be able to see behind that to the person. So thank you.
I think one thing that's kind of been an ongoing challenge is convincing people who are no longer teenagers that this education and inclusivity is important for teenagers. And it's definitely, I don't have a solution to it yet. It's like an everyday battle trying to convince administration and teachers that this education is important. We have gotten, well, thankfully the response hasn't been like, we've gotten so much more positive of a response than a negative response, but every now and then I will get the occasional thing that's like, you're teaching our children how to be XYZ, and it's just like a really negative, just not at all what our mission is. And so I mean, just every day we're kind of trying to figure out like how we can convince more and more administration, more and more schools to allow this to be something that is taught in schools. That way youth can just feel more comfortable and more, have more options to express themselves the way that they want to.
It sounds like you've done a lot of work being able to market in a way what you're doing. Do you get support from parents? What kind of?
Yeah, we do actually. We have some parents who are really supportive, especially those who were involved in our Youth Community Advisory Board this year. But others, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag overall, but it is really nice to have. We definitely do have a lot of support.
Thank you. So this is all of us are aware it's kind of a difficult time in our culture, and there's a lot of things going on nationally and even regionally that are homophobic and transphobic. And I'm wondering, how do you cope with the difficult times that we're in and the messages that are out there in the culture? You're seen as brave souls doing this work. So how do you cope with it?
I think over time for me, I've kind of learned to kind of introspect and think logically, and kind of with logic and as logic by my side, I tend to realize that what what other people may be thinking that could be negative about the LGBTQ community generally is not true. I think also having a supportive network of people at work, which has been wonderful, as well as socially, has definitely helped as well. And kind of knowing that at least a small part of what I do helps to dismantle those negative perceptions of or negative thoughts that people may have of the LGBTQ community gives me some fulfillment as well.
I've been out since I was 15. If people think that burning down a couple houses, a couple blocks from my brother's house and less than a mile from my neighborhood, or passing laws that attempt to criminalize friends and family are going to make me 1 ounce less who I am and less of a fighter on behalf of people who are my community. Boy, they got another thing coming. And I have enough fire in me for this fight, as many years as I am given to fight it. And an army of lovers cannot fail, is an older saying from our Pride marches that I think is deserving of re-upping.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would say, first of all, I stay off Twitter as much as I can, and then second of all, I let myself get angry, and then the anger just kind of turns into my work. And it's thankfully I have a really good group of friends who are like, when we started the Violet Project, we're all really passionate about it as well. And so it's really nice to be surrounded by people who have the same beliefs as me, and we can all get angry together and turn it into something good. But yeah, honestly, sometimes the anger kind of helps when you get tired, and then it just helps you like work more. So it's good.
It's true, isn't it? Our anger can be fuel, isn't it? That determination. Yeah. So if any of you have questions, be sure and put them in the chat. I'm just going to keep going on until you interrupt me, but I'd be glad to ask some of your questions too. So I'm curious, I think this says a lot about Hopkins that we have this award and that we have the large focus on diversity, inclusion, and equity. But so given that, is there anything that you'd like to change at Hopkins? Anything that you see on our horizon that would behove us to pay attention to?
I think as a very large organization, it is unfortunately easy to participate in washing. So in this case, rainbow washing, to have our actions as an institution not match our intentions. And I guess while I understand that sometimes institutions as big as this one can have a momentum that is hard to change, I would say that in general, around all of our equity initiatives, including equity initiatives related to LGBTQ plus individuals, I would want our institution to make sure that we are putting resources, financial and otherwise, behind meaningful change in addition to awareness initiatives.
I don't think I've ever heard the term rainbow washing. That's that's cool. Or Samad?
Yeah, I wish that the training that it seems like Amelia and Keisha's departments do, or the advocacy that they do for like training on how to be a good provider for gender diverse, sexuality diverse patients. I wish that was like a standard across the board for anyone, like in the School of Medicine. Like I wish that was, I work in the gynecology and obstetrics department, and like faculty here have a long ways to go in terms of knowing even like appropriate terminology to use, or it sucks because also kind of, I mean, sometimes you're just like, or at least I can only speak for myself, but sometimes I'm just the default in my division for like when they have a question about something that's like, are we using the right terminology, or how do we like represent trans patients in this like new infographic or video that we're making? Like that should be something that we are all trained on, and like every physician gets educated on before they become a provider.
So Amelia just put in the chat, we're working on it. So great suggestion. It sounds like someone else is hearing that already. So that's great. Keisha, what about you?
I think I generally would like to, I wish there was more like networking for LGBTQ faculty and students, kind of support where to support kind of each other's missions. I know we all come from diverse divisions and everything, but it would be interesting to see support beyond training and like cross division connections.
Cool, more of a community, sounds like, yeah. So question from the chat. Knowing this is a long fight for diversity, inclusion, and equity, what do you do for self-care?
I guess I enjoy traveling, experiencing new cultures, seeing the world. It's especially interesting to see how LGBTQ life is in different places, whether that be in a place that isn't as friendly to LGBTQ people, or someplace that's extremely friendly to LGBTQ people, seeing kind of the diversity of expression and freedom out there.
I live really close to Patterson Park, so I spend a lot of time there, just like walking around or hammocking or whatever, and just spend a lot of, I enjoy cooking with my friends. Those are like two big ways that I decompress.
Thank you.
I would say that June every year is a big thing that I use to fill my cup. Seeing my community in joyous togetherness. I'm so excited for this year's Pride Parade. I will, as I always do, have like a passel of children, mine and other people's who have volunteered to bring to the parade for the first or umpteenth time with me. I will be wearing glitter and sweating it off, and that's a thing that brings me a lot of joy. Spending quality time with my wife and my daughter. My wife and I have been together many years, is another thing that really fills my cup and helps me have the energy to put my back into it, because it is a long fight, and that's okay. All the good ones are.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. And if anyone else has a question, be sure and put it in the chat. Or what I'm curious about is, what's your next project? What's on the horizon for you?
Well, I'm going to be fast off the unmute button because I'm really excited about ours. So first, there's a school of medicine task force that I'm really excited about changing this across the entire school of medicine, because I think that as has already been raised, is a hugely important thing to make sure that if you graduate from medical school here, that you have a foundation of an education that ensures that you are going to be a responsible and careful clinician who knows how to take good care of patients who are a part of our community. Second, and within my tiny wheelhouse, we are revamping all of our emergency medicine educational initiatives to specifically include diverse scenarios in a way that does not fall into sort of the MCQ trap, where a patient of color always has sickle cell and those kinds of so-called diversity traps. And I'm very excited about those changes that we're making curricularly, and I'm very excited with their support at an institutional level.
Terrific, thank you.
The kind of the next step for one of my projects is we recently started giving out violet packs in clinics throughout the hospital system. So that basically just means that it's we have volunteers who are trained to give like little educational lessons, and then patients get to choose period products and condoms and things like that to take home with them, as well as some information about the educational platform. So I think we just actually expanded to the pediatric emergency departments at downtown and Bayview, and I think it would be great to expand the reach that patients get, because I think like sexual and reproductive health is obviously important to everyone. Like no one can really avoid like knowing about sexual and reproductive health. So I think it would be great if we can use these like any kind of point that patients are coming to the hospital as an opportunity to share more education with them that they can go home with and read more about how to better themselves in terms of overall adolescent health through our digital health platform. So I would love to see that continue to expand as well. And then for me personally, I am actually hoping to be an OBGYN one day myself. So I'm on the medical school journey right now, and hopefully next summer we'll be matriculating somewhere. But yeah, so those are the two big next steps, I think.
Wow, that's fantastic. We'll all be sending good thoughts your direction so that it can happen. That sounds amazing. Kishala,
I think for me, I'm kind of interested in what the experience of LGBTQ hospitalists are. So I'm trying to figure out like a project that deals with that. And also looking at inpatient admissions for LGBTQ folks to see what exactly people are admitted to the hospital for, so we can provide and tailor better care for people and while they're in the inpatient service.
I knew you guys wouldn't quit. I knew you'd have big things going. So that makes a lot of sense. So thank you. Let me check the chat. So there's another question, I think. Let's see. Maybe not. I think this might be just an announcement. Let's see. The last event, there's a link in the chat. I guess for this, Tamla can tell us, and then an announcement, a reminder about our last Pride event that's coming up. So that's all in the chat as well. I have a final question if no one else has a question. And that is, I'm curious about, we don't do these projects by ourselves. So I was wondering if there are people that you want to give a shout out to that were partners with you along the way, or people that you're grateful to. It's a way to kind of wrap things up today.
Yeah, I mean, every time that this has gotten hard over the past couple of years, I feel like I've said this a million times, but the teens that I work with, the youth that I work with have been like truly the reason that I'm able to keep going. And so I'd love to give all of them a shout out, as well as all of the amazing undergrads I work with who've been part of this journey and who've helped volunteer so much of their time to make this possible. So.
I think for me, I definitely think of like my LGBTQ patients and how we can provide them the best care. And so I think about my past patients, my future patients, no current patients on my service right now, but I do think about my patients and how it'll still impact them.
Our patients are the best teachers, aren't they? They're the ones that give us the oomph. Yeah. Amelia, sorry.
No, not at all. I would say I would like to recognize a very specific person whose name is Paula K. Davis. She's currently the Associate Vice Chancellor for DEI at the University of Pittsburgh. And she literally saved my life when I was in medical school. And she is the reason that I am alive to do this work today. And she is an extraordinary individual, and I know she's not at our institution, and none of you probably know her, but when I graduated from medical school, I literally flew across the stage to embrace her, because all of us have people who are weights on our shoes or who give us wings, and she's somebody who has given, I think, a lot of people wings over the years, but including me. And so I try to say her name whenever I'm given the opportunity to do so. My wife and kid also are hugely wing giving, but she's somebody who helped me be on the path that I am today.
That's terrific. Yeah, I just think for myself that we don't ever do any of this really alone. We really is a community around us, our patients and the people we serve and people who've taught us. So thank you. I'm out of questions. Do you have anything I didn't ask you wish you could have shared? Anybody? If not, we can probably wrap this up. We have the future. We got the Zoom link in the chat, and we've got the future events. And just again, congratulations to all three of you. Your work is inspiring. You're inspiring. Your thoughtful responses today and the ways in which you are modeling this and who you are, as well as the work that you're doing, is just really inspiring. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you all. So if we could do one more round of like applause and do hands, or we can do whatever we want to say woohoo. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. I think it's also really a wonderful thing to feel this community of people who've come together on this call to hear and to celebrate together as well. So thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.